Will everyone please join me in Gassho or place your hands together in silent contemplation as I read the words of our founder, Master Shinran Shonin. How joyous I am, Gutoku Shinran, disciple of Shakyamuni. Rare is it to come upon the sacred scriptures from the westward land of India and the commentaries of the masters of China and Japan, but now I have been able to encounter them. Rare is it to hear them, but already I have been able to hear. Reverently entrusting myself to the teaching, practice, and realization that are the true essence of the Pure Land Way, I am especially aware of the profundity of the Tathagata's benevolence. Here I rejoice in what I have heard and extol what I have attained. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandats, namandats, namandats. Good morning, everyone. Well, I have very good news for all of you to begin the service today. I am finally over my jet lag. Coming back from Japan is not an easy thing. Of course, I love being there in Japan, and it's a wonderful country, and I really enjoy the food, and I enjoy going to morning service at our head temple of Nishihonganji. But I will admit that after about 10 days or so, and almost close to 2 weeks, I was ready to come home to the comforts of home. And however, coming back in the other direction, it's always so hard to get back onto Pacific Daylight Savings Time. And I was jokingly telling my martial arts teacher that maybe what I should have done was kept going west, make a stop in Europe first, then make a stop on the East Coast, and then maybe come back to the West Coast. Maybe then I would have been able to just totally get over the jet lag really quickly within a day. But regardless of which, I am very happy to be back, and I'm happy to celebrate Hanamatsuri with all of you here today. Now, while Hanamatsuri is April 8th, we are celebrating Hanamatsuri today, where we commemorate and celebrate the birth of Prince Siddhartha, who would later become the historical Shakyamuni Buddha, where we receive all of our teachings from. I always love the story of the birth of the Buddha. And for those of you who are somewhat new coming to the temple or are here for the first time, I will briefly recap the birth of the Buddha. And for those of you who are interested, if you look to, let's see, I'm facing you. If you look to your right, you'll notice we have pictures of the Buddha's life along the wall here. The first two pictures, starting from the door, are the first parts of the Buddha's life, where the historical Buddha's birth story is just as filled with legends and myth as the story of the birth of Christ. You all know, for many of you who know this story, Prince Siddhartha was born in a garden of Lumbini. And this was when his mother, Queen Maya, was on a pilgrimage from her home. Now, Lumbini is actually now in what is today modern-day Nepal, and you can still visit this place, believe it or not. And the Prince Siddhartha was born from his mother's right side, and fantastically enough, was able to walk 7 steps from the moment of his birth. And with each step, there were flowers that bloomed, lotus blossoms that bloomed out of the ground. Then, as well as auspicious signs, beautiful flowers started to bloom everywhere. And then on top of that, sweet rain fell from the sky, which is why when we do service for Hanamatsuri, we pour the sweet tea over the Buddha's head. So this is the symbolic storytelling of the birth of Prince Siddhartha. And now, not only was the baby Prince Siddhartha able to walk as soon as he was born, he was able to speak as well. So you'll see, when you all come up for offering kambutsu or pouring sweet tea over the Buddha's head, you'll see that the little statue of Prince Siddhartha is pointing up and pointing down. And his first words were, "Between heaven and earth, I alone am the exalted one." Between heaven and earth, I alone am the exalted one. Now, first, this might seem kind of like a very conceited statement. Like, ooh, what if I said that about myself? What if Reverend Koyama said that about himself? That you probably all wouldn't be coming to temple anymore. You probably would find a new temple with a more humble minister. But in actuality, this story serves to tell, the story serves a purpose. It's to tell the auspicious tale of the beginning of Prince Siddhartha's life. Now, did this actually happen historically? I don't think that actually matters. My Uncle Dean, Reverend Dean Koyama, who used to serve at the Tacoma Buddhist Temple, would always say a wonderful response to these types of questions. When we hear stories of the Buddha, there's a lot of fantastical elements. The Buddha was able to fly. The Buddha was able to be in 2 places at once. The story of Queen Maya's birth is even fantastical in that when she was sleeping in a dream, a white elephant came and entered her right side, which is why you also see white elephants during this time of Hanamatsuri as well. Now, again, going back to what my uncle said, when people would ask him, like, well, did this actually historically happen? Do we really believe in this story and this tale of the Buddha? My uncle would always respond with, the question is not whether or not this actually happened. The question is, what does this story mean? What is this story trying to tell us, right? For all we know, it did happen the way that it did because the Buddha was the one who would achieve enlightenment and to give us the teachings to enlightenment. So for all we know, they did. However, instead of being preoccupied whether or not that these fantastical things actually happened, why don't we read between the lines and realize that this is a tale of a great religious leader who was born? And of course, embellishments get picked up along the way. We can look at this story with possibly a critical lens, but also with the religious one. This one tells us the story that the beginning of a great spiritual journey was about to happen. This story of Prince Siddhartha is the one I think that all of us who may have heard several times before, but for those of you who are just coming to the temple or new to Buddhism, the story of Prince Siddhartha goes back over 2,500 years ago. Can you imagine that? 2,500 years ago. But more importantly is, then the story of the birth and the story of how he came to be in this world is the story of his whole entire life and the teachings that he brought to all of us. As Jodo Shinshu Buddhists, we are incredibly grateful for the 3 Pure Land teachings that the Prince Siddhartha or Shakyamuni Buddha would later give to us. But I think what's wonderful about this as well is that we realize that we are in America and the story and the religion of Buddhism has traveled all along this way through China, Korea, Japan, and then through Southern Asia as well. All of these countries have had some type of Buddhism inside their country at one point or another. Who would have thought that now, over 2,000 years later, the story of the Buddha would cross over the Pacific Ocean and come to the United States with the immigrants who first came to this country, both Chinese and Japanese. This story also tells the tale of the mortality of us all as well. See, this part's actually not often well known. But sadly, the Buddha's early life was also met with tragedy. You may not have known this, or I may not have said this before, but just 1 week after Prince Siddhartha was born, he lost his mother. His mother had passed away. Just 1 week after. And it's very interesting to me that for a lot of our Buddhist teachers and our religious leaders, a lot of their religious journeys begin with their birth and then the loss of their mother soon afterwards. Now, Prince Siddhartha's auntie ended up marrying his father and became his adoptive mother, of course. But what's interesting to note is that from a from an infant young age, Prince Siddhartha was forced to come to the terms and to the realities of impermanence. But this is not just the tale of suffering and woe, it is also a tale of hope and liberation. Prince Siddhartha's story tells us of how he went through tumultuous religious training. First, of course, he lived in grand luxury. He was raised in a palace. And the name that was given to him, Siddhartha, what literally means or is translated as every wish fulfilled. His father wanted him to have everything that he could ever want, his heart's desire. And because of that, he was raised in luxury. But he was not satisfied. And of course, later on, he went through tumultuous and hard religious training, strict religious training of renunciation. Think of having everything and then giving it all up and then having absolutely nothing. But he also realized that this path was also too extreme and not the way to enlightenment. And therefore, he found the middle path and became enlightened under the Bodhi tree. I love this story of Prince Siddhartha because it reminds me of the start and the origins of our tradition. It's very easy for us as Jodo Shinshu Buddhists, and probably, and I can't speak for all, but all other religious schools, to kind of get caught up in ourselves. We are very much the Nembutsu followers, saying Namo Amida Butsu. Nichiren folks say Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Zazen people sit. And then, of course, the Tibetan Buddhists recite their mantras over and over again and count the beads as they meditate. Other Buddhist schools teach insight meditation. And of course, the Theravada schools, our goal is to become an arhat of enlightenment. All of these schools, I think, it's easy for us to get a little sectarian, to get caught up with ourselves, to kind of think that we're the better school or we're the right school and the other schools are wrong schools. But if we take a step back and view our school from an objective viewpoint, which is definitely possible to do, we can see that we all come from the same source of the Buddha, the same source of Shakyamuni Buddha. Through the sutras he spoke, thus, and his young cousin Ananda said, "Thus I have heard." All of these lessons the Buddha has taught, and has taught many different types of people. The teachings between all the various schools are different, yes. They amplify different aspects of Buddhist practice. Ours amplifies saying Namo Amida Butsu. But this doesn't mean that we're better or that we're the right school for everybody. This means that we are part of a great tradition that comes from a spiritual leader named Siddhartha Gautama, who would later become Shakyamuni Buddha. And in this regard, we can appreciate that Buddhism has spread and has been shared throughout so many areas of the United States. I believe, I'm pretty sure I'm not wrong, that every single state now has a Buddhist school of some kind. Every single state in the United States has a Buddhist temple, or a Buddhist temple. Maybe not Jodo Shinshu, but some type of Buddhist temple. And again, with the rich tradition and the wonderful fact that immigrants come to this country, the immigrants also bring different forms of Buddhism here as well. Recently, there's Vietnamese Buddhists, Cambodian Buddhists, and Sri Lankan Buddhists who come to this country. All of them have something to contribute. All of them have an aspect of teaching that we can appreciate. Yes, for myself, for all of us who are followers of the Nembutsu path, the Nembutsu is the way. But this doesn't mean that we close ourselves off and that we distance ourselves from other schools and that we become so sectarian that we only involve ourselves with each other. In this time of our country of great divide, and sadly, sadly, our communication between each other these days seems to be very, very hostile. I think this is a wonderful time for us to share our space and to share our teachings and to share our time with other Buddhists in this country, and not just other Buddhists, but everybody. Part of our teachings very much exemplifies and encourages interdependence. We hear the two I's a lot, impermanence and interdependence. Impermanence means that nothing stays the same, that everything changes. And we might know this intellectually, But admit it, when a routine of ours changes or when our day is disrupted, we get upset. This is the teaching of Buddhism. Interdependence, we might know this intellectually, but when someone crosses our path or when someone disagrees with us or when we have to work with other people and we have to step outside of ourselves, this can get also very frustrating, the suffering that Shakyamuni Buddha was talking about. I think now more than ever, in these hard and trying times, we must actually read and possibly take these teachings to heart, and where we can meet people not with contrition or with animosity, but with wisdom and compassion and love. For this is the message of Shakyamuni Buddha. Shakyamuni Buddha recognized early on that there was a state of suffering amongst humanity, whether that be through war, ego, money, greed, ignorance, of all alike. Shakyamuni Buddha set out on a mission to set all of us free from this hindrance, free from the three poisons. And yes, there are many paths to this end goal. For us, it's the Nembutsu, saying Namo Amida Butsu. But this doesn't mean that we divorce ourselves and we don't live in the world right now, and that we live in the here and now. Siddhartha, in fact, actually encourages all of us to realize that we do live in this world with people we don't like, people we disagree with, people we may even have great anger towards. But in that regard, Siddhartha also says that it starts with the internal self-realization, self-reflection of our own imperfect bombu, or our kleshas, or our hang-ups, or our afflictions as well. These lessons were gifted to us by Prince Siddhartha. And while this Hanamatsuri message might be a little bit heavy, I think it's important for us to realize that as we continue to see the news and as we continue to exist in this world and as we go about in our daily lives and exist within the community, that we take heart the message of compassion, wisdom, impermanence, interdependence. Things will pass. Things don't stay horrible forever. But that doesn't mean that we just give up and stay on the sidelines and watch the world go by either. We can definitely utilize our Buddhist teachings in our daily lives by how we treat people. I'm not expecting all of you, nor do I think all of you should go out and do marches. And if you want to do those things, wonderful. But I'm not expecting you all to go out and become the next huge savior of the world. If anything, where we can all start are small acts of kindness, small acts of respect, small acts of love for one another in the community. These are the things I think that can really put a dent in prejudice, hatred, ignorance, where we can meet a person where they are and treat them with genuine respect. For this is what the Buddha did. Anytime a person came to the Buddha with a problem, the Buddha never said to them, "You must think the way that I do." The Buddha was able to meet these people where they were and was able to very gently guide them to the way of the Buddha Dharma. Even King Ajatashatru, that's a hard name to say, but Ajatashatru was a horrible king. He was a dictator. He usurped the throne from his father, imprisoned his mother, did all sorts of terrible things in his life. But towards the end of his life, as he was getting sick and as his condition was worsening, he went to the Buddha for help. And the Buddha did not say, "Get out of here, Ajatashatru." The Buddha did not say, "Leave here at once because you are not worthy of me, because of all the horrible things you did." Right? The Buddha never said this. The Buddha sat Ajatashatru down and said, "You have a problem, I'm here to listen. You have a problem, I am here to help you." Even for a person for guilty of many, many horrible things as Ajatashatru, there was still a path to enlightenment. There was still a path of redemption. And I think this is the message that we should all listen to, I think, in terms of the Buddha's time on this world. The birth of the Buddha is a great story, and it leads us to realize that this was a very auspicious person who was born. Now again, I'm not saying this story because I'm saying that we should tolerate horrible actions or that we shouldn't speak out against horrible things or horrible policies. That being said, though, I am also saying that as Buddhists, we do approach things with a very strong connection of wisdom and compassion to the best of our abilities. Okay? So as we continue to live in this life, let us open our ears to the words of Shakyamuni Buddha when he speaks on impermanence and interdependence, when he speaks on Amida Buddha's endless wisdom and compassion for us sentient beings. Let us say the Nembutsu, Namo Amida Butsu, with a deep sense of gratitude. For as we continue to go and traverse through this life that we live right now, how shall we interpret these Buddhist teachings? How shall we take them to heart? When we listen to the birth of Prince Siddhartha, the story of the birth of Prince Siddhartha, what is this story trying to tell us? How will this story help us? And as we continue to realize that this is a tradition and a teaching that has traversed through space and time into the modern day world of the United States of America, we must ask ourselves, why is that? What is this teaching that continues to thrive so wonderfully and so well? I would like to thank you all very much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to come and celebrate the birth of Prince Siddhartha with all of us today. In closing, will you please join me in Gasho as I recite the words of our master, Shinran Shonin. How joyous I am, Gutoko Shinran, disciple of Shakyamuni. Rare is it to come upon the sacred scriptures from the westward land of India and the commentaries of the masters of China and Japan. But now I have been able to encounter them. Rare is it to hear them, but already I have been able to hear. Reverently entrusting myself to the teaching, practice, and realization that are the true essence of the Pure Land Way, I am especially aware of the profundity of the Tathagata's benevolence. Here I rejoice in what I have heard and extol what I have attained. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Nam Mandats, Nam Mandats, Nam Mandats, Nam Mandats.